there's a course to recovery. There's a course to recovery. Even when it gets to the point where it feels like it's too far gone, there's a course to recovery. It could take a little more effort. It could take some discomfort. It could take you dealing with the consequences of the situation you put yourself in. But there's a course, there's a path to recovery. There's a path to better. It doesn't have to go downhill from there.
Sit back, relax, and chill. Grab a glass of wine or a cup of tea, 'cause you're listening to NoTable Talk.
What's up, y'all? It's your boy, Otumba, and welcome back to NoTable Talk, a podcast where I break my tables that you may be able to resonate with as well. If it's the first time listening, watching, thank you for being here. If it's not your first time, thank you for coming back. Hope you've been enjoying the episodes so far, and most of all, hope they've been edifying, and hope they've encouraged you one way or the other. Hope you've learned something, and hope you have left impacted with at least an assurance that you're not alone. An assurance that you're not alone, man. We're all in this together. We're all in this together. A lot of people are going through the same thing you're going through. Maybe just in little different variations, but we're all in this together. You feel me? Well, I just want to remind us to like, subscribe, hit the Jesus. Hit the notification bell. Hit notification bell. And so that you're aware when new episodes come up. They come up every week. So hit the notification bell so that you're aware. And then so that you can tap in to what's going on over here. Without further ado, let's get into it. I want to start today by sharing a little story about myself. I think some episodes back, I hinted at some of my challenges in the educational sphere. And I want to go a little bit into it today. I've had a couple of challenges educationally. I schooled in Nigeria. I did my secondary school in Nigeria. I actually did part of my college in Nigeria as well. Educationally, I had been pretty good. I'm okay. I'm not dull. I'm pretty smart by the grace of God, so I was okay. The challenge had just been when I choose to apply myself, really. But the challenges really started towards the end of secondary school. In Nigeria, we have the from junior secondary school to senior secondary school. So I want to say from SS2, that's senior secondary school 2, from SS2, that's where my challenges started, when one particular subject, I think it was chemistry. Yes, when chemistry wanted to hold me back to repeat that grade, that level. And then I eventually changed schools, and then was able to get into SS3 and then did my WIAC and all of that. But then fast forward into college, I got into my first year. First semester was good. College typically has 2 semesters. I think here where you throw in the summer semester, so it kind of makes it 3, which is kind of optional. But there are 2 core semesters, being the spring and the fall. Yeah. But in Nigeria, they don't have those names. The school I went to had Alpha and Omega semester. It was a Christian college, so we had those names, Alpha and Omega semester. So, the first semester was good in my 100 level. First semester was good. Yeah. Regular. Nothing too fancy. Nothing, just regular. And then, hints of the problem started in second semester, where I found myself being distracted by my passion for dance. I joined the school's dance team there, and I had been dancing for a long time in my life. I'd been dancing from when I was a child. I danced in school, primary school. I danced a lot in church. So I had a passion for dance. I always had a passion for dance, and I was pretty good at it. And then I got into college, and then I discovered the school's dance ministry. And it was a no-brainer for me, really. And I joined in my second semester, and that's when things started to look shaky. I feel more distracted by that obligation and that passion for dance. And especially when I became more involved I started to hold leadership roles. I started to hold more, I won't say authority, but I started to have more of an obligation when I started to form dance routines. I started to be looked at as the point man. And also, I was pretty good at it. When you're pretty good at something, you tend to take ownership of it. You feel me? So that heavily contributed to the downturn of my academics. You feel me? So my grades started to flunk, and I was able to push through past that second semester in 100 level into 200 level. And that's when things really started to get bad. So at the end of 200 level, my grades were so bad that I had to repeat 200 level. And so I repeated 200 level, and my grades still didn't get better. If anything, they got worse. And mind you, as you're failing classes, you kind of carry them over. I remember when I said in my second semester, my 100 level, that's when the issue started. So I'd carried over 1 or 2 classes into the 200 level, you feel me? That coupled with the already existing distraction and the already existing struggle in my academics, you can already imagine that would only make things worse. So, like I said, just let's go downhill from there. So at the end of my second semester, my 200 level, I actually repeated my 200 level. So I repeated my 200 level. So instead of going to my third year, I stayed in second year. So I was retaking second year classes. And even then, it didn't get better, you feel me? So eventually I was, I wouldn't say for lack of a better word, I was rusticated. I was politely asked to leave. I was politely asked to leave because my grades were bad. And keeping in mind that I had not just repeated my second year, I was on track to repeat it again because my grades weren't picking up. So that eventually brought me out of the country, or led me out of the country. But the reason why I decided to start to go into the story is because I wanted to share 2 major things that I learned from that experience, really, from that period of that experience. You see, I highlighted how I got pretty heavy into the dance ministry. And I allowed that to not just be a distraction, but I also allowed that to be an escape. You feel me? And even though I had an existing issue, which was my academics, which a lot of people could argue, it wasn't my first time being in this, but like I said, I had an issue in secondary school, and that little issue I was able to bounce back because I changed schools, and then I picked up. I remember into SS3. I did my WIC, I did my JAMB, I passed everything, flying colors, everything was good. I picked up, you feel me? I applied myself. But in college, it was different. I think also the fact that it was just me. When you're in secondary school, you go to your parents, you answer to them, and then they also can hire a lesson teacher that can teach you and all of that, which they did. And so that also helped me, keep me accountable and keep me up to task. You feel me? But I guess things were a little bit different in college. And I wanted to say that in thinking back to this time, I can see how I didn't just use dance to distract myself, but in the space of having a primary struggle, which was my academics, which you would assume is the main thing in my life at that point in time, I gravitated more towards something that I was naturally good at. So that's the first thing I want to say. You see, the thing is, I was reading the Bible, and Solomon said in Ecclesiastes, he highlighted how there's a time for everything. There's a time for everything, a time to mourn, a time to be joyful, a time to live, a time to die, a time to laugh, a time to cry. Pretty much the gist of it is there's a time for everything. There's an appropriate time for everything. And sometimes we could define the purpose of the time we are in based on what we're good at, based on sometimes what's familiar, based on sometimes what gives us joy. And we could miss it in that way. I mean, me, for example, for some reason, in hindsight, not even just in hindsight, in the thick of it, if someone really sat me down, I knew that my parents didn't send me to school, an expensive school at that, to be dancing. They didn't send me to school to be dancing, you feel me? So if anything, that was more towards, and that was supposed to be an extracurricular activity. Maybe, if anything, especially because it was a dance ministry, like I said, and the college I went to was a Christian college. If anything, it was also an avenue for me to glorify God and use my talents for God. But at the end of the day, that wasn't the main reason why I was there. You feel me? So the reason for the what defines what the season you're in now is not what you're good at. It's not what is familiar. It's not what is convenient. It's not what is comfortable. What defines what the time you're in is for is the purpose of which that season is meant to directly and accurately serve. You see, when we look at a farmer, when we say there's a time to plant, there's a time to harvest, there's also a time to just re-nourish the soil. There's a time to preserve the soil. In the winter, if you're planting, you're working against the timing and the season of that time. You feel what I'm saying? And I feel like a lot of us could fall into that boat. It's something that I didn't just fall into that boat at that point in time. I've fallen into that boat times after that. You feel me? Where you misalign with what the timing is and you allow convenience, you allow what gives you peace, what gives you joy to then define that season. You could be walking outside that season. Even with this podcast, if I say to myself that, and I have said it to myself, I have done it in the past, where it's setting an inappropriate amount of energy. I could do this and I don't have to, there's a certain amount of energy I could put into this and still be timely, still uphold a certain standard, and still be impactful and still speak sense. I'm not saying nonsense, you feel me? But there's a certain amount of energy I could put into this at the wrong time that could be misaligned. You feel me? Or I could make this I could redefine my season for this when when in this season I should be doing this and also something else and also something else. You feel me? This may not have to be like a primary thing. This may just be like on the side. If anything, like you working in the appropriateness of the season, you have to properly serve that thing which you're doing. I flunked in my academics and I went to dance. And it's funny because another thing about seasons and doing something in season is that, in the time when I was in school and I should have been studying and I was dancing, I got good at dancing. I was pretty good. I got pretty good at dancing. And at the end of the day, when all that time passed, I came out being a good dancer. But being a good dancer had nothing to do with what that season was for. And you see that when you misalign with your season, you come out on the other end, and all the effort you may have put into something, you could see that when you look back, there was zero fulfillment in that season. All that effort, all that energy, even though you could put certain yardsticks to success, but it's very, very clear that that's which you succeeded in was out of the season. That which you succeeded in wasn't the main point of that particular time that you were in, or that particular period that you were in. You feel me? So I feel like this helps identify why you are in this season of your life. And sometimes when one says this season of your life, it could sound very mystical or very, very inspirational. This season of your life, prioritizing and knowing what you're supposed to do at every particular point in time, what you're supposed to focus on, what your priorities are. You feel me? That's what it is. What your priorities are. If I'm planting and I'm supposed to be harvesting, my priorities are off. The second thing I want to say is, in that period of my life, the funny thing is, you may ask yourself, how did I let things get that bad? I will tell you exactly how I let things get that bad. By ignoring them. By ignoring them. by not facing the issue head on. You see, in the previous episodes, I talked about how your issues and your challenges or the consequences of your challenges are like a snowball rolling downhill. And as it rolls down, it gathers more snow, it gets bigger. The damage it causes is more impactful. That's exactly what happened to me. That's exactly what happened to me. I ignored the challenge. And then, I mean, there are other factors to play in. Someone could cite depression and all of that. But at the end of the day, things had to get too far along for me to get to that point. You didn't have to get to that point. If I had tackled the issue at the forefront and not allowed my extracurricular activities or the things that I was good at or the things I could find certain success in to distract me from the main thing, from the main issue, I would have recovered. I'm not the first person to fail a class. People have failed classes and retook it and they were good. You feel me? So neglecting your issues is never a good idea. It is better to face it head on. Whatever you have to do to get through that situation, whether it's to have, it could be very uncomfortable. I mean, in colleges, we have advisors where if you're having an issue, you could talk to somebody, or if forget somebody, you could talk to a classmate, you could talk to a professor, you could talk to someone who's a class above you, you could talk to friends, you could talk to someone and be like, okay, I have this problem. But just because you're running away from having those tough conversations, especially when you know what you have to do, especially when you know what kind of light that issue paints you as, how it makes you look, you tend to run away from it. You feel me? I tend to avoid those tough conversations. You tend to avoid that extra effort you need to put in. You tend to avoid even just looking at the problem. Looking at the problem doesn't feel good. Nobody wants to feel like they're in a wrong. Nobody wants to feel like they have things to work on. Oh my God. Nobody wants to feel like that. It's not a good feeling, but it's a profitable feeling to address it. Especially when you realize that nobody's perfect. Like I said, I wouldn't have been the first person to fail a class. I wouldn't have been the first person to fail a class. People fail classes. People fail classes, you feel me? So, unlike your girlfriend or your significant other, your problems thrive on neglect. Your problems want to be anonymous. They want you to just ignore them and run away. You feel me? But face it head on. Address it. That, first of all, that's the only way you could change. As if you wanted to change. I would hope you wanted to change. That's the only way you could actually chart a course to be better. You feel me? Addressing it. So whatever discomfort may have to come from that, maybe in my particular situation, if I had addressed the fact that, okay, I wasn't doing well academically, especially after my second semester, my first year, failing one or two classes, all it would have taken me just a little more investment, because I mean, like I said, those classes carry over. Just a little more investment in studying. I had to maybe just stay up a little extra hours at night, go to another class more than I had to go to, which was a consequence of my action. Anyway, I put myself in a situation. You feel me? Go through that little level of discomfort, or maybe not little level, that long. It could be a long period, but it could be longer. It could be longer. If you let it fester, it's easier to deal with it now than for it to get to a point where, and I let it get to that point. I let it get to a point where there was no way for me to turn back. There was no way for me to turn back the hand of time. There was no way for me to recover. And I was, at the end of the day, politely asked to please leave the school for them. But the beautiful thing is, even when you get to that point, there's always a way out. Thankfully. We thank God that there's always a way out. There's a course to recovery. There's a course to recovery. Even when it gets to the point where it feels like it's too far gone, there's a course to recovery. It could take a little more effort. It could take some discomfort. It could take you dealing with the consequences of the situation you put yourself in. But there's a course, there's a path to recovery. There's a path to better. It doesn't have to go downhill from there. It could go up. It could go up. Thankfully, now I'm in a place where I flunked out from college. I'm on course to get a bachelor's degree. Thankfully. Now, you think about the consequence. I think about the extra efforts. And I left Nigeria, then I had to go back. Start from the beginning. I had to go back. But thankfully, I went back. I got my associate's degree. I got my bachelor's degree. And now I have my master's degree. And all I know is that now I'm correlated with a master's degree. I'm not correlated that flunked out of college. It's not written on my forehead. Nobody sees it. You wouldn't know if I didn't tell you. Only people that knew me personally then. You feel me? And even though they're not remembering me for that, they're remembering me for what they're seeing in my life now. Thankfully. So even if it could be tough. The course to get better could be tough. It could be challenging. It could ask a lot of you. But just think of it as the fact that you're now paying yourself what you owe yourself because you denied yourself in the past. You denied yourself success in the past. Now you're paying for it. So you might as well put in the work. So I hope that encourages somebody. Hope that especially if you're in the educational sphere and you're struggling, hope this encourages you to address whatever issues you may have. If it looks like it's too far gone, it's not the end of the world, bro. There's a course to get better. So you just get back on track, do what you have to do. And you'll be the better for it. You look back and you smile. And then you'll be like, oh, beautiful. It was all worth it. All right, I'm going to stop there, bro. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for listening. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share. If you think somebody could do with this, share it to them. It doesn't even have to be in the educational sphere. It could be anything they could be going through. I mean, life has its struggles, has its issues, especially when we have a hand in it. There could be things we could be doing better or we could have done better. And besides beating yourself up, besides just ignoring it and running from it, sometimes you have to face it head on. I mean, it's not the same thing with dwelling on the past, but sometimes you have to acknowledge it. Don't let it hide in the dark. Acknowledge it. Deal with it. And come out the better. And even when it looks too far gone, there's always brighter ahead. Just remember that. There's always brighter ahead. All right, y'all, take it easy. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. And have a good one. All right, peace.
Sit back, relax, and chill. Grab a glass of wine or a cup of tea, 'cause you're listening to NoTable Talk.